First thing I need you to do is look on your calculator for the special button. Said it either had to have a button that said EE or EXP, or you might have one that says times 10 to the. Okay? What is it anyway? What is it? What is it you're handing me? Oh, okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, everybody find that button on your calculator. Anybody not able to find the button? Okay, don't have a calculator? I can let you borrow one so that you can see what. Okay. Okay, so this class is really hard if you don't bring the required materials. The test is going to be really long. If you don't have a calculator, I've only given you a week and a half's notice. I'm going to run out pretty soon. Okay, the second thing I need you to look at is you have look at the very top of your screen and see if it says multi-view. If you have a calculator that says multi-view, your life is difficult. I specifically said you don't want one that says multi-view. Yours is that one down there. Okay, bottom center. Outside the X. Hey, because the multi-view does order of operations differently. It doesn't do order of operations at all. So what it's going to mean is if you got multi-view, you have to use parentheses to force the order of operations. They made multi-view so they can give you a test on order of operations where the calculator didn't do the work for you. That's why they made it. Okay, but that button, whatever that button is, it stands for the same thing. It stands for times 10 to the. So it takes the place of the times, the 10, and the to the, and the next thing you're going to type in is going to be the exponent. Okay? So we want to get this number into our calculators. So here's how you do it. First, you push 4.5. Okay, and while you're looking at the screen, push your magic button. When you do that, your screen is going to change in some way. It will either write times 10 to the, there's a few do that. Some write an E. Some put 2 zeros up in the corner. Some take the number you just typed in and move it over and write 2 zeros right behind them. Whatever your calculator does, it's telling you where it's going to write the exponent. So the next thing you need to get in is that -4. So don't push subtract. Push the change sign one, -4. Okay? And if you got -4 there, that is how your calculator is going to write 4.5 times 10 to the -4th. I didn't tell you to push a button or anything. I didn't tell you to push equals or anything. That's just what your screen's going to look like when it says 4.5 times 10 to the -4th. It's probably not, for many of you, it won't say 4.5 times 10 to the -4th. You're going to have to translate what's on your screen onto the paper. So if it writes an E, you write times 10 to the. If it just writes 2 zeros off to the side, you write times 10 to the. If it writes times 10 to the, you write times 10 to the. Now, push equals. Okay, two things will happen when you push equals. It will either say 4.5 times 10 to the -4th and say the way it was, or it will write 4.5, or it'll write 0.00045. If you got error, you use the subtraction sign, not the negative sign. I suspect strongly. So, let's try some math. Let us push this in our calculator. Now, this is just a multiplication problem. Okay, it's just a multiplication problem. So you just have to type it in as 6.0, don't have to type 0.0, EE3 times 3.8 EE2 equals, your calculator will say one of two things. It will either say 2,280,000 or 2.28 times 10 to the 6th. Anybody not able to get it to come up with one of those two answers? Everybody able to get it? Work this time? Works this time now that we figured out which button we're supposed to be using? Okay. Is it working? Everything's working so far? Anybody have any problems? Okay, now let's subtract those two numbers. Six EE3 minus 3.8 EE negative 2. Or positive 2, sorry. Okay. And if you do that right, you will get either 5.62 times 10 to the third, or 5,620. Anybody not able to get those numbers on their calculator? Hey, just one minor question. Just a minor question. Does 6 minus 3.8 equal 5.62? How the heck, where did 5.62 come out of this? Because 6 minus 3.8 is not 5.62. Where the heck did that come from? Oh, the calculator. Well, we don't just trust calculators. Okay? And so, where's it coming from? Well, if you subtract 6 minus 3.8, you're saying that their decimal points are already lined up, and they're not. Because this right here, 6 times 10 to the third is 6,000. 3.8 times 10 to the second is 380. That's where you get 5,620. See, it's not, you're not subtracting 3.8 from 6. You're subtracting 0.38 from 6. See, what do you mean 0.38? Well, they have different exponents. You can't really subtract them until they have the same exponent. So if I leave that 6.0 times 10 to the third, and I take the second one, instead of making it 10 to the second, I'm going to make it 10 to the third. I have made the exponent bigger, so I have to make the number smaller. So instead of 3.8, 0.38, still on this. And that's where you get the 5.62 times 10 to the third. Make sense? They're not just, if you trust your calculator as magic, you're going to get led astray lots of times. Okay? Understand what your calculator's doing. Man. Okay. Now, those with multi-view, could you get the answer on the last one? Okay, because you use parentheses. If you don't use parentheses on that one, it won't work. Because the reason why is because subtraction is not commutative. Right? You can ignore the parentheses as long as you're just multiplying and adding, because those are commutative. But if you're dividing or subtracting, you've got to put them in, because those aren't commutative. You can't just turn them around. Because 4 times 2 is the same as 2 times 4. But 4 divided by 2 does not equal 2 divided by 4. Right? So you should have gotten 5.62 times 10 to the negative second. Or 0.0562. Because I'm still subtracting 0.38 from 6.0. Because negative 2 is 1 bigger than negative 3. Right? Just like positive 3 is bigger than positive 2 by 1. That's what made them line up. Okay. 5.3 times 10 to the 22nd minus 3.8 times 10 to the 21st. .95 times 10 to the 22nd. Could you imagine doing this longhand? And trying to make sure the zeros lined up? You'd rather do this with scientific notation, right? Imagine typing it in your calculator in longhand. How many zeros was that? Right, you get lost along the way. Okay, so one more little trick I need to show you. It's dealt with this, so PEMDAS or PEDMAS, depending on who you talk to. Okay, it's not a problem on the first one. You should be able to just push the first one, okay, the way it's written. It says to take 2.4 and multiply it by 4.8, and then 2.4 times 10 to the third times 4.8 times 10 to the third, and divide that by 1.2 times 10 to the minus fourth. Okay, so you should be able to push that just into your calculator. So let's push that and see what we get for an answer. 2.4 E3 times 4.8 E3 divided by 1.2 E negative 4. Okay, 9.6 times 10 to the 10th. Okay. Okay. Now, there's a quick check that you can do to make sure you haven't made a silly mistake and divided where you're supposed to multiply. Remember that with exponents, when you're doing math, you add exponents when you multiply and you subtract when you divide, right? So 3 plus 3 is 6. Minus a negative 4 is 10. Then I can check to see if the exponents work out really fast. I don't have to do the whole problem. If I make a mistake, it's probably going to be doing it in the wrong order, and it's going to give me the wrong exponent. So a quick check is, you know, if you multiply, you add exponents. You divide, you subtract exponents. See how your exponents work out. They'll be within 1 if you did it the right way. Okay. All right. I was going to have you do the next one, but you're probably going to do it wrong unless I teach you this next piece. So here's what I want you to do on your calculators. On your calculators, solve this problem. 6 times 2 divided by 3 times 4. Okay. And just about everybody's going to get the wrong answer. Everybody gets 16. And if you push on your calculator, okay, if you didn't get 16, you did something besides push the numbers that I asked you to push. Because you may put some parentheses in. I suspect that's what you did, right? Got 16. Oh, you got 16? Okay. Here, how the heck does that get 16? Because 6 times 2 is 12, right? And 3 times 4 is 12. So 12 over 12, the answer's got to be 1. Everybody agreed the answer has got to be 1 to this problem. How come I got 16? Well, because your calculator did exactly what you told it to do. It did 3 times 4, or sorry, 6 times 2. 6 times 2, and it got 12. Then you pushed divided by 3, and it got 4. And then you pushed times 4, and it got 16. It did exactly what you told it to do. So you told it to do the wrong thing. Okay, there are several ways of fixing this that you've learned in the past, and I want to suggest a new one. Okay, one way of fixing it would be to put this in parentheses so you multiply it first. That would work, right? Another would be to solve the top, then solve the bottom, and then do the division. Okay, I'm going to teach you a simple rule that we're going to run into all year, and it's really simple, and it works all the time. If you got just multiplication and division, if it's on the top, multiply by it. If it's on the bottom, divide by it. That's all you do. So to push this into my calculator and get the right answer, I would push 6 times 2, because they're on top. 6 times 2. The 3's on the bottom, so I push divided by 3. And here's the tricky part. The 4's on the bottom. So I push divided by 4. And I'll get 1 if I do that. So all the numbers on top you multiply, all the numbers on the bottom you divide. Does that make sense? Because that 4's on the bottom. You really want to divide by that 4. Right? It's on the bottom. What do you do with numbers on the bottom? You divide by them. Right? So numbers on top multiply, numbers on the bottom divide. With that in mind, do the next one. (4.8) 3 divided by 1.2 e negative 4 . That's what you should have gotten for an answer. One of those two. Okay, so those of you with multi-view probably didn't work as well, unless you put parentheses around them. Okay? But got to put parentheses around the bottom because it's going to do times, because you got times in the bottom. Okay, so how do you get that answer? I put 4.8. EE3, it's on the top, divided by 1.2 EE negative 4. That's my second number. Now the 2.4, it's on the bottom, divided by 2.4 E3, and I got the same answer again. All the numbers on top you multiply, all the numbers on the bottom you divide. Okay? And we're doing it with scientific notation, but you'll find that we're going to run into strings of fractions where they have numbers on the top and the bottom. Anybody who can't get that to show up on your calculator, parentheses.
I used parentheses the first time I got the answer, then I tested it without the parentheses, and I still got the same answer. And I have a multi-view calculator.
Well, that's bizarre. I'll check see that because it usually gets you in the wrong order. I'll look and see. Okay. Anybody else not able to get this answer to show up? Okay, so oh, my papers are gone. I'll be back. That's all I got. I got about 15 minutes left. Okay. So, front side should be pretty straightforward. More practicing getting in and out of scientific notation for the first two. Okay. Then some math practice. Practicing using your calculator to do that. Then on the back side, a couple of scenarios where they ask you about the parts of the scientific method. Okay, that make sense? Where it's going to ask you to identify manipulated variables, what you control, what you don't change, those kind of things. So, okay. I'll be with you just a second. Okay, so 4.8 E3. Oh, 1.2 is on the bottom. So that has to be divided by. I think the numbers on the bottom you divide by. So